Hello, Izzy.
Hello.
Welcome to NiCHE Conversations. I am one of the editors here at the Network in Canadian History and Environment. And today I am joined by another one of our editors, Isabelle Gapp. Do you want to tell us more about yourself?
Yeah, I am a Institute Fellow and Lecturer or Assistant Professor by North American terms at the University of Aberdeen in the Department of Art History. And
Yeah.
been a lecturer with NiCHE for 3 and a bit years, I think now.
Yeah. Is it
Something
3 years or 4? I think it's 3 years. Yeah. 3 years of visual cultures of circumpolar north
that as
and 3 years of
well.
Isabelle.
And 3 years of NiCHE, for me, obviously.
Yes. Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about part 4 of this series that you started when you were in your first year editing before us. And this time, part 4 is about extraction. So I thought that we could start off by discussing what the region's relationship to extraction is and how the extraction kind of affects the visual culture that is coming out of the Arctic.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think part of what we really wanted to do with this series, or this part of the larger visual cultures of the circumpolar north, was to highlight just how expansive extraction is, and that maybe at first we think of sort of like mineralogical or resource extraction from the earth, and we obviously think about oil and gas and energy, and we really wanted to showcase just how extractive the people have treated the Arctic. And I think for us, like the series as a whole, was to really draw attention to both visual cultures emanating from the Arctic that comment on these extractive processes, but also, again, to draw attention to non-Indigenous and more perhaps colonial histories of extraction that have played out in the Arctic, where I think Alistair's piece in this series does a really good job of actually marrying the two parts, because he brings attention to sort of like Martin Frobisher going out looking for gold, and obviously, and as we all sort of now know, fool's gold, as it turned out to be. And then we have this fantastic sculpture by James C. Pitsiolak coming out of Kingite in South Baffin that's commenting on the extraction of fool's gold. And so we have this marrying together of sort of image cultures that are coming from the Arctic, as well as being created in the Arctic, that are commenting more largely on these processes of extraction. And I think it's slightly new for us to take a very sort of thematic approach to the series, and really draw attention to sort of like one sort of broad theme in relation to visual cultures of the circumpolar north. But I think what's so useful with it is, both extraction and extractivism are really in themselves useful lenses for thinking through sort of different ideas, institutions, and ideologies. And visual cultures, similarly, is really useful for kind of like more broadly seeing these larger social, economic, as well as visual frameworks.
Yeah.
So I think it's been a really kind of interesting way of sort of broadening perhaps the historical as well as visual scope for how we think about Arctic extraction.
Yeah, I know as an environmental historian, when I was reading all those books to be trained, we read a lot about the North being treated as a place to extract from, like the South, whether it's Southern Canada or it's Great Britain or what have you, just taking from the North to give wealth to other areas, right? And I think this series really speaks to that, and shows how it permeates not just our economic and political spheres, it permeates our very culture and our socialness and the way that we are trained to think about the North. And yeah, it's just so pervasive.
And I think as well, things that we wouldn't necessarily immediately consider as extraction.
Yes.
I think we wouldn't immediately think of the extraction of human beings and I think what this series really highlights is how humans become really intimately caught up in these processes of extraction, and that they're not separate, that they're very much tied together with how, non-Indigenous, primarily people from the Anglospheres, from the US, Canada, and the UK, are perceiving Indigenous communities within the Arctic as well.
Absolutely. So you've touched on one of the posts, but can you talk a bit more about what readers will find in part 4?
Yeah. So I think what was really nice is we got to spend a bit more time with the introduction this time around.
Mm-hmm.
We actually got to, I mean, my co-editor, Jonathan Payton, who's a associate professor of geography at the University of Manitoba, has a lot to say on this. And he was really, he really sort of shaped the introduction. His own research engages a lot with processes of extraction in sort of mid-century, mid-20th century visual cultures. And from a geography perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think having his him guiding that introduction really helped us. But in itself, I feel like the introduction is a really strong read for how we want to frame Arctic extraction from an interdisciplinary perspective. Then we have Justin Rawlins, who got us started with his piece on Land of White Alice, which was a sort of a documentary film that was made. And it was really great because Justin was part of our session at the World Environmental History Congress,
Cool. Yeah. Which
was also on the theme. So the NiCHE series very much came out of our WCEH kind of session on the same theme. So Justin, it was really great to see that turn from like a presentation into a NiCHE post. Then we had Anna Soper. So Anna's contributed to NiCHE before. And it was really great to have her sort of art practice focus as part of this. And it was a real interesting challenge because she wanted to do a sort of a more interview base rather than a traditional essay. And it was just really nice because we got to sort of back and forth and sort of tease out a lot of these issues with a specific focus on her piece Terra Nova, which is a series that she produced back when she was at university and then she returned to later. And it's all about the extractive processes around materiality, which I'm personally really interested in from an art historical perspective. So having that conversation with Anna was really, really exciting. I think as well, what was really interesting about the series is you've got 2 contributions from UK-based scholars as well, which I think just shows how the reach of NiCHE is just kind of being out of hand. So we had Peter Martin, who wrote about Sheldon Jackson and the creation of reindeer herds in Alaska in the late 19th century. And I know Peter's been doing a lot of work around Sheldon Jackson, but he hadn't had the chance to tease out and think specifically with these drawings. So for him, I know this was a really great opportunity to kind of like actually dig deep into those drawings, which I think we'd love to see. And then Alistair, who, as I mentioned, wrote this great piece about Frobisher and Fool's Gold, and these 2 drawings of Inuk man and Inuk woman that were sort of brought out of the Canadian Arctic by Frobisher, and sort of puts this in contrast with Pitsialak's sculpture. And I think, again, Alistair, again, was really great to have contributing because he very much wanted to contribute, having seen the previous series of visual cultures. And then we got Hilary MacDonald, who again took us more to, she concludes the series with a piece focusing on her own art projects surrounding northern Manitoba. And so I think, again, bringing that kind of like what we perceive as Arctic, what we perceive as North and visual and sort of circumpolar North into a different environment that is perhaps more familiar to a lot of our niche audience, that is less sort of Arctic and more kind of tangible and relatable in some ways. And just the conversations with Hilary around these artworks, and I think the essay really shows how personal this landscape is to her, and I think she does a really good job of communicating it. So it's a slightly more concise series than previously, but I think it's got a really strong narrative and does a lot in really bringing together the theme in a really tight and succinct way. So I hope everyone goes and gives it a read.
Wonderful. Yeah, I've loved every piece in it, and I did find that, as with the whole entire series, just the breadth and the variety of visual cultures. I think a lot of people, get really hung up when they think art history or visual culture, they get on paintings, but it's just so much broader than that. And I really appreciate the way that the series, as well as the ones before, have really opened my eyes to that fact. Yeah, I've learned so much. It's wonderful. Yeah. So you're edited this series with Jonathan Payton, and I thought I'd wrap up by kind of talking to you about this other project that the 2 of you are leading, teaching Arctic environments. And, what is this project? What's up with it? How can people follow, get involved?
Yeah, so Teaching Arctic environments is something that Jonathan and I have kind of been working on for over a year now. We only went live with it in August. As with all these academic projects, you kind of do a lot behind the scenes, and then it's only at the end that you get to share it with anybody. But although what's really exciting with Teaching Arctic environments is that it's not the end. So it's live, but the project is very much ongoing. So we kind of identified, as a geographer and an art historian who teach and research Arctic environments, that there isn't a lot of accessible sort of teaching resources that broadly consider Arctic environments. You know, if you're an art historian and you want to teach glacial landscape painting, for example, to be able to communicate that glaciology, you've kind of got to assign a glaciology paper, which to a lot of art historians is just going to be really inaccessible. And we wanted to create sort of really accessible, short form, engaging materials that were visually and object orientated. So we have a project website simply called teachingarcticenvironments.com. And on this, we are uploading and developing with other contributors sort of what we're calling education boxes. So in these are short 1,000-word essays. They're not heavily cited. There are hyperlinks. There's further recommended reading and viewing. But the idea is that it's sort of like it's an introduction to it. It's a sort of a pathway in. And it's all centered around one object or one image. And then this is accompanied by a 5 to 10 minute audio recording. And the idea being that as an instructor, you can assign the recording, the essay, a combination of the two. As students, you then have these other readings that if you're particularly interested in a subject, you've got these sort of pathways in. And I think what's so exciting is that we've got, I want to say 8 pieces, I've lost track, online so far, but there isn't a deadline. So the idea is that we want this project to keep going and keep developing. And so we've got a piece that we'll be uploading shortly by Jen Rose Smith, and other pieces forthcoming from Hester Blum. And the idea is just gathering these different disciplinary perspectives around Arctic environments, very broadly construed, and kind of allowing this to kind of grow naturally. So there will be a series forthcoming in the new year that's all around Greenland. Really excited to share. Yeah. And it's open to anybody. This isn't for myself and Jonathan. This is for the wider community of people teaching and thinking and researching Arctic environments, for them to use, adapt, and do with what they will, and hopefully contribute as well in a way that benefits them.
Neat. That's awesome. I've
We're on Instagram.
Yeah, you do have an Instagram. Everyone should follow. And I've been enjoying seeing what's coming out of the project. I think I do love my open source, like these sources that anyone can use and add to, and I just like how dynamic and alive they feel. And yeah, what a great resource that you two are putting together, as well as a bunch of other people. So
yeah, we really hope so.
Oh, go ahead.
That's it.
Okay. Yeah, I just like, and I also it seems like, I think of Canadian environmental historians as having a really close crew, and when I've been witnessing the visual cultures series evolve, it just seems that also scholars of this region also have like a close connection, and you two, like, you're all doing such cool things together, and I love to see it. So
yeah, it's really nice. And I think the series has, for me as well, been really exciting, because you just get to see how many people are working on this, and the really exciting work that's taking place, especially among PhD students. And Teaching Arctic Environments also highlights that. So several of our contributors so far are PhD students, which I think is really lovely to be able to kind of just show how, I just look back at like when I did my PhD a few years ago now, and just think, it's just grown exponentially. It's so wonderful. And selfishly, I love the series just for that I get to keep seeing how exciting the field is.
Yeah, that's I love working with everyone and seeing all the different people coming into environmental history more broadly, and it's one of the reasons I love doing niche stuff. So yeah, so this is part 4, and now what is there, a couple dozen? I don't know, how many posts are there in total for all 4 series? A lot. I will post a link in our stories to everything. So yeah, the first couple were very large, I feel like.
Oh, that's, I feel like we've definitely surpassed 20. We might be close. We might be close to 25.
Yeah, I think so. It's good stuff. And yeah, Isabelle is one of our editors, so you can keep an eye out for more stuff coming from this realm of scholarship. And you're coming back for 2025, which is wonderful.
Apparently, apparently I am.
We have gotten our claws into Isabelle, and we're not letting her go. So yeah, thank you for joining me today. It was so nice to see you.
Thank you for having me. It's been great being here.
Yeah, take care. Bye.
Bye.